Hello, my name is Matthew Whitehouse, and this is my Formative Assessment Reflective Showcase. For my student number is N9936815, EUB343. My tutor is Danielle Gordon, and my tutor time is Thursday 8 a.m. through to 11 a.m. So the school that I attended was a one campus independent school grade from 7 through to 12, approximately 20 kilometers north of central Brisbane. This school had a total of roughly 1,800 students and approximately over 100 teaching staff. The class that I was teaching was a Year 8 HPE. The class was an excellence engineering class with 29 students, and one student had a learning disability. So the engineering excellence class was a class that just had a lot of the brighter students, well-behaved students, and so the behavior management was quite easy and quite fun. All students also had to have access to their own devices, so the BYD program, to be part of this classroom. So the key learning intentions, so content descriptors from Year 8 HP, personal, social, and community health. Investigate and select strategies to promote health, safety, and well-being. So ACPP SO73 from Scoodle, and the more intricate version is investigating reasons why young people choose to use or not to use drugs, proposing strategies to make them informed choices. So my learning intentions for the lesson was I will understand the difference between physical and personal effects of alcohol. So the diagnostic questioning that I went through at the start of the lesson, so what diagnostic questioning is a form of assessment that can help you identify your students' current knowledge of a subject, also gets an understanding of their skill level as well. So my diagnostic question went for about 5 minutes at the start of the lesson, prior to any knowledge of the current lesson taking place. So it's got to be at the start. So I provided each student with a sticky note. I told them to write their name in the top left-hand corner and write the number 1 in the top. So the name in the top left-hand corner and the number 1 in the top right-hand corner. I then asked the students the following question. Choose any specific organ in the body and explain how alcohol affects that organ. So as you can see here, the student has written their name in the top left-hand corner, number in the top right-hand corner, and they chose the brain and gave a short statement as to what the brain does when is under the influence of alcohol. And as you can see, this is student 23's example. I then allowed the student to leave them at the top right hand of their table and instructed them to not touch them again. This allows me to go through any point in the classroom and check on the students, just reading it without interrupting them from learning or writing down anything. I can just read their sticky note and see where they're at, see if they wrote something fully, if they wrote I don't know or something at all. And that just gives me a gauge of where that student was. So one of the students just wrote liver dies. That informs me that they don't know much or anything specific about the liver. After collecting the sticky notes at the end of the lessons, I compiled an Excel sheet and a table who wrote I don't know, who was missing guided or answered the question correctly. As you can see here, ranging from students 1 through to 29. So the results, the good answers, I got 18 of them, which is green. And those were students who were able to give me an answer and chose an organ. Misguided answers were yellows. Students who chose an organ and gave me misguided information or maybe something that may have not been fully correct. There was about 5 of those. And students who didn't answer at all, which were marked in red, was 6. So those are people who were I don't know or just didn't give an answer. And then the ratings from 0 through to 2. So students who did not complete were marked as 0. So all the reds were marked 0. Answers relates but is incomplete. So the misguided answers, which are yellow, were all given 0.5s. And then 1 through to 2 were the students who answered questions, and this just depends on the level of detail that they went through and the effort that they gave. So the total marks for the entire class was 24.5, and the averaging was about 1.13. So that's just passing the question. Percentages, 62% of the class, so that was 18 students, were able to answer the question correctly. 17% of the students were misguided and 21% of the students were unable. So this allows me to engage that over half the class got all the question right and was able to answer it. It also informs me that 38% weren't able to do this. The learning experience that I went through. So a learning experience, I gave them a reading task. And this task came up on the student OneNote. Once they finished, they were asked to complete the worksheet and then do a think, pair, share strategy. So students were asked to fill this sheet out, marking the sections to which they believe the areas affected in their life. So vomiting, does this affect the drinker? Does this affect the drinker's friends or people around them? And so clearly when you're drinking, you vomit, that affects you. That may affect the friends that you're around because they may have to deal with it. And it may affect random people. If you're just by yourself, it will affect the random people that you're around. You may vomit on some random person. So it's clearly you tick all three, but some students may not do this. May tick one or two, or maybe none. And so giving them that think, pair, share strategy will allow them to go around to the other students and see what their answers were, what they thought of the question, and allow them to just grasp ideas. So once completed, students, again, they paired up and did that. When students were able to relate all this information back to their own life and see how this works, helps them retain their information better. So seeing that them vomiting, drinking alcohol, will just allow them to see that that's going to affect other people. So the formative assessment that I went through was this little worksheet here. A formative assessment provides feedback information during the instructional process when the students are learning. So while they're learning, it gives them a task and they can see how well they're gauging on the work. So are they doing well? Are they still struggling? What do they need help with? What are they excelling in? And this is without doing a full testing, so just gauges what the class is generally needing to work on. So I told students to write down in each box how the alcohol affected certain areas. So once I discussed through the class and through the PowerPoint and through other activities, I asked them to write how each area is affected. This was uploaded to their student OneNote, and they were able to upload it at the end of the lesson and allow me to write individual feedback. So as you can see here, the student has given an answer for at least each of them, and I was able to give feedback on the ones that needed feedback. So we'll go through what the feedback that I was able to give. Since this was on their OneNote, I was able to upload this to their Word document and add comments. So as you can see here, I said that the eyes are also bloodshot, creates distress in sleeping. Make sure you don't drink drive. Just because they only put blurry vision, there was a couple other options. Otherwise, the student did really well. They managed to get most of them. I also added the fact that they needed to explain a bit more instead of just giving one-worded answers, and explain the process and not just what happens. And also I went with deliver and talk about diseases for the specific ones that had diseases. The final formative assessment was the exact same thing as a diagnostic. I believe that you should test them with what you diagnostically did and see how their improvement was, especially if it's just one lesson. So the final formative assessment was chosen to do the exam activity. Provide each student with a sticky note, each instructing them to write their name in the top left-hand corner, number 2, so I can decide which one was a diagnostic and which one was formative when I take them all home. Then ask the students the same question. For students, I told them to write about the same organ, and if they didn't write anything the first time, they were able to choose one that they thought was fun or interesting. As you can see here, the student has written a bit more. This wasn't the same student, but they've written quite a bit. I can come through evidence, and you can see the evidence here. So this was a student who originally was marked 0.5, so student number 29. The first time they wrote just liver degrades, it was a one-word answer. It is true, but it wasn't enough for me to give them a pass. It wasn't what I was looking for. But by the end of the lesson, they were able to explain multiple things. So permanent liver damage, toxic enzymes, damages liver cells, liver cancer, and scar damage. So I can see that they've learned quite a bit. They've given me multiple different options, so I was able to give them a 2 by the end of the lesson. And this was a student who got a 2 at the start. I was quite generous with the markings at the start of the lesson. Alcohol deteriorates the liver and breaks it down, so it is close or it does not function right anymore. So that was, they gave me an option, they gave me an organ, and they discussed what happened. By the end of the lesson, they were a lot more detailed. They told me that it creates a toxic enzyme, which creates scarring, permanent damage. So you can see the progress from the start of the lesson to the end of the lesson. The student has done a lot more work and was able to explain it a lot more in depth, which it gives me the idea that they have learned quite a bit, which is student example 12. So the progress tracking was, I then made a second data table. As you can see here, the second time through, every student but one got a passing grade, and 3 students were unable to maintain the 2. So we got 55.5 compared to 24.5 the first time, which is total mark increased by 31 marks. And the averages went from 1.13 to 1.91. So the average increased by 0.78%, which I think is crazy. And a quick note of this was important, and I made a quick judgment over this in the next lesson, showed them that they were actually paying attention, that they did learn something and that it affected them. So students didn't know who they were, didn't know what they affected, but it showed them that a lot of students went from zeros to twos, ones to twos, things like that, that most of them made increases. And this was just able to show me that my lessons are working, and that the task sheets and worksheets that I'm giving through and going through, they're maintaining their information, they're retaining it. And I would have started the next lesson with maybe a quick refresher on this lesson and just see what they did and see what they retained over maybe a couple of days. So here were my references. Thank you. I appreciate it. And goodbye.